Psychologist B.F. Skinner, interviewed by Barry Serafin of CBS News in Washington on September 7th, 1971.
The struggle for freedom and dignity has been very important to free man from all sorts of unpleasantnesses in the world, particularly those arranged by other people who would control him punitively and so on. It's very important to make the individual realize that he doesn't need to take that. He can answer it and counter-control those who try to control him. But it doesn't mean that he's free. When he's doing what he wants to do, he's not really free either. He just happens not to care that he's being controlled that way. But the philosophies of freedom and dignity have tended to make it impossible for those who see the next step to move on, because it does look as if we were controlling people.
What is the next step?
Well, the next step is not to impose new controls, but to change the kinds of controls which now exist. We are all controlled all the time. That's a fundamental principle of a science of behavior. Parents control children, and children control parents. Employers control workers, and workers control employers. And they do it badly, and so that the home is not a very effective environment anymore. The situation in which people engage in productive labor isn't really very good. People don't work very hard or very carefully, and they don't enjoy what they're doing. Now, that can all be changed, but it means that you're going to change the ways in which behavior is controlled.
How, for example?
Well, we've learned a great deal about the reasons why people behave, and particularly the ways in which they behave and enjoy what they're doing and behave because they want to behave, and control what they want, essentially. And it would be possible, I'm sure, to design good incentive conditions in industry so that people work much more efficiently than they now do, as more actively and carefully, and enjoy what they're doing, and produce the goods which the culture needs. We have to have production without sacrificing what used to be called individual freedom. I think people would enjoy what they're doing, would do it much more effectively, and yet they would be controlled. And if you design this kind of incentive system, it is a form of control. You might as well admit it.
What sort of incentives?
Well, to some extent money, which is a fairly easy one to manipulate, but the general satisfactions of doing something you take pride in and so on, that kind of thing, the social aspects of any work condition, work situation.
You also mentioned the home. How do you go about changing what happens in the home?
Well, it would be very hard to accept our present family structure and make it a very reinforcing, rewarding place. In the old days, there were larger families and often servants around the house, and now it's narrowed down to a father and a mother and two children in either a small house or an apartment. That's a very difficult social situation. Very difficult for the child to find the right people to identify with and to work with and to be reinforced by. I think we need a bigger family unit. I think these young people who are setting up families or communes are struggling, but they're not doing a good job because they don't understand the problem.
What don't they understand? Why aren't they doing it?
It's not enough just to walk out on an existing culture and let it die. You've got to build a new culture, and they're not really doing that. These communes don't have any kind of permanence built into them, and they're not being productive. They're not actually getting along very well together either.
There are communes in Virginia and elsewhere modeled more or less after your ideas. How are they working out?
Well, I haven't visited them, but I have a good deal of faith in what they're doing. There are many things I could only, when I wrote my book, Walden 2, I could only guess what this sort of thing would be like, and they're finding out how wrong I was as a guesser, among other things.
Doctor, you're quoted as saying, parents have no idea of the proper use of reinforcement. I would prefer to turn child raising over to specialists. Is that how you really feel?
I'm afraid it is going to be so. The more we learn about the proper care of children, the less you can trust an inexperienced person. When I was a kid, my father repaired our automobile. He knew how to take the shimmy out of the front wheels and file the magneto and all of that sort of thing. Now, I don't know the first thing about it. Our car, and I take it to a garage instantly. I don't think instructions for how to raise children come with the baby, and I despair of parents learning, because I myself I think, not a very good father. I'm lucky. My children are wonderful, but I didn't really do the right things. The situation isn't conducive to doing the right things.